And hi, everybody. This is Paul Gibbons. I gave a talk at a very big conference in 2017, and I wanted to share it with followers on YouTube and followers on Patreon and elsewhere. It's a very long talk, and it was in front of 600 or 700 people. And unfortunately, I do not have a video of it. That would probably be the best way to do this. So I'm going to re-record it here, and I'm going to do it in two parts. So the name of the talk is 7 Workplace Megatrends and 3 Science-Based Tools that leaders can use to work with them. So let's get started. The times we live in the 21st century are as chaotic and as disruptive as any we've seen. I'd like to talk about the disruptive workplace megatrends and 3 tools that you and your followers can use to flourish in these times. So early in this century, the U.S. Army War College began to use the acronym VUCA to describe strategic environments, think Afghanistan, Iraq, that were more challenging in more new ways than ever before. VUCA is an acronym that stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Volatile means it can ignite or explode. Uncertain means that outcomes are unpredictable and unforeseeable using normal logics of the situation. Complex means there are many moving parts, so that moving parts, it's impossible to diagnose cause and effect or which levers to pull. And ambiguous means that there's a fog of war that we can't even often see clearly the environment in which we operate. The problem for military leaders and for business leaders and we as individuals is how do you make good decisions in a VUCA environment? So the first dimension of the VUCA world is globalization. Globalization has been with us for 2,500 years, since the Phoenician sailors and the Chinese Silk Road and the East India Company. But if globalization means connectivity, that genie doesn't go back in the bottle. We are not going to ever be able to unglobalize, even though today in certain quarters it's a dirty word. The difficulty with globalization is while the ecology of the world and the environment of the world and the economy of the world and communication around the world and data around the world, those are all global. But our human mindset is still tribal. We still think in much smaller units. As recently in Texas, and one of the people I met said, Dallas and Austin aren't really Texas. And if Texans don't think other Texans are Texans, it isn't surprising that people have deep tribal identities that stop them thinking about the big picture. In my own country, the UK, Northerners generally resent Southerners who have more money and more power and nicer clothes and fancier accents. They aren't the real England. The real England belongs to the Northerners, the historical manufacturing areas of England. This kind of tribal thinking makes it very difficult to make decisions on a global scale, which is why we see some of the chaos we see now. And so again, the ecology and the environment are global. The economy is global. Communication, information, and data are global, but our mindset is still tribal. The second problem, briefly, is that the benefits are really badly distributed. Rich countries do much better than poor countries. People already well off did much better than people at the bottom. The stock market since 1980 is up approximately a factor of 10. Real wages, unless you're a C-level exec, have been mostly flat. Entire industries and job families and communities have been destroyed. Employment in the Scottish village where my family came from was wiped out 35 years ago and is only just recovering now. An entire generation was spent in poverty. The second dimension that I want to talk about is disruption. This slide is from 2017, and look who the newcomers are and look who exited the index. And it's interesting now, if you take a look at the entered the index and exited the index, there are some newcomers. Toys R Us is gone. There are others that have disappeared in just recent times. So this is, in a way, the dark side of innovation. And while we wouldn't want to get rid of any of the companies on the left, they do great things, I think, despite the fact that Facebook and Amazon are under a little bit of heat right now. I don't think I'd like to be without either one of them in my life. You know, we have questions. The third dimension of this is digitization. It's the image on the left is one of the US Library of Congress. It contains about 10 million books. Laid end to end, those books would stretch from coast to coast in the United States, and if you lay the pages end to end, they'd reach about to the moon and lay the words end to end, they'd reach twice the distance to the sun. Today we can fit all that data on something just slightly larger than a cigarette package. Data moves much faster in the digital world, while things like ships and cars move about the same speed as they did 100 years ago in terms of orders of magnitude. Communication speed has increased by about a factor of 1 million. An analog phone from 50 years ago used the bandwidth of 4,000 hertz. The signal that comes into my house is 40 million bytes per second. That means that you can download the entire Library of Congress in just a few days. The volume of digital information and speed of digital data has produced psychological threats to humankind. While we have more information than we've ever seen before, we are drowning in an information glut. So one study suggests that we can consume the equivalent of 74 newspapers a day. This has led to the democratization of news production. Anyone with a keyboard today can pretend to be a journalist and an editor. Fringe views can now find audiences of hundreds of thousands, meaning they compete for legitimacy with mainstream views of experts, scientists, researchers, doctors, and policymakers. Complementary medicine competes with the Mayo Clinic. The Food Babe competes with Harvard professors of nutrition. This may amaze you. There are a significant number of people who think the disaster that happened in Vegas in 2017 is fake news, what they call a false flag. Some of that is valuable, democracy, free speech. But how is someone drowning in information supposed to parse and make sense of all of this diversity of sources? Who has the time? Do we have the skills? The next trend, wonderfully, is longevity. My life expectancy when I was born was 66. I'm almost there. Although having made it this far, it's closer to 85. For people born today in the OECD, life expectancy is 80.9 years. If you did one of the turn of the century, that is around 1900, your life expectancy would have been 46 years. If you wanted to turn back the clock to the 19th century, your life expectancy would be about 36. And what's interesting about this is that throughout human history, it's remained largely the same and largely stable. It didn't really start increasing much above 35 until 1800. Isn't that interesting? Our entire mindset, economy, social structures, financial services, the retirement industry, the medical industry, etc., is just not equipped to handle this rapid increase in longevity. Our mindsets may still be that people in their 50s and 60s retire. A few decades ago, such people only had a few years left. Now they may have 30 years left. And that loss of productivity and expertise and the boredom, at least from my point of view, spending 30 years playing shuffleboard is a tragic waste. And that's why I often say in some of my writings on career that retirement is retiring. People like working, and unfortunately, many people haven't made the financial provisions to live prosperously all the way into their 80s. So we 44 million baby boomers have a couple of decades more of working. Either we may want to, which is my case, or we may need to, as many of them do. The next sort of super duper mega trend is long and dynamic careers. The increased longevity has led to a shift in careers, and during your life, you will average 5 to 7 long-term jobs. The idea of a company man or woman working from 22 to 57 collecting a watch because she faithfully remained at the same company for her whole career is antiquated. It seems quaint. The world is just moving too quickly. There is too much disruption in the corporate sector. There are too many forces from globalization to expect companies to be able to provide that kind of job security. And what we've seen in the last quarter of a century, in fact, in the last decade, is huge growth in startups and in the gig economy and what we call sometimes side hustles. Interestingly, although we glorify the young entrepreneur, 51% of the owners of small businesses are over 50. 33% are in the 35 to 50 category, and only 16% are 35 years old and under. Also interestingly, almost 70% of US entrepreneurs start their businesses in their garage or at home. But there's a kind of paradox here. Whereas it looks less secure that companies are going to be unable to provide the kind of security they did half a century ago, the new gig economy and the startup economy and the side hustle economy actually provide better long-term security. For whatever the marketplace or economy throws at you, you have the skills to go out and earn a living without corporate employment. You're actually better off. But this does require an enhanced set of skills. Business development. It's not just for salespeople anymore. You need to certainly know how to do that. Marketing isn't just a job for marketing people. You need to know how to market what you do. Running your company's books isn't just for an accountant. You need some familiarity with how to do that. Managing a portfolio of jobs and projects means everybody is a project manager of some kind or another, and everybody is a client relationship manager. That takes a lot of skill. Our next big trend is employment churn. The United States lost 5.6 million manufacturing jobs between 2000 and 2010. 5.6 million jobs. However, 85% of those jobs were lost to robots, not the Chinese and not the Mexicans. Those jobs are not coming back even if we erect trade barriers with those countries. Steel mills in Pennsylvania that once employed tens of thousands of workers can now be efficiently run with just a few dozen AI and robots. It means the destruction of many jobs. For example, legal secretary is a job that's going to be phased out, medical secretary, administrative jobs, or other forms of service from cashiers, truck drivers, and taxi drivers. Those are all jobs that artificial intelligence is likely to wipe out. However, it's also going to mean the growth of other jobs in areas such as data science, making and monitoring robots, green jobs, automation, etc. All of this, however, can create an employment churn. There are going to be winners and losers, and it's up to the individual to take responsibility for their employability and marketability so that they can think fast on their feet. You want to position yourself to be a winner in the decades to come so you can profit from this churn rather than be harmed by it. And now we come to our AI future. Is it going to look like this, or is it going to look like that? Into the mix of robotics and artificial intelligence come worries of an existential threat to our entire species, Judgment Day. That of an artificial intelligence more powerful than ours, and no lesser minds than Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk have expressed their worries. You won't notice breakthroughs in AI so much because what was once considered impossible, once that's achieved, is no longer really considered AI, but just standard check. Chess was thought impossible. Go was thought impossible. They've been solved. Go for a year and chess for 1997 Deep Blue, 20 years. Natural language processing was once impossible. Now we have Siri, Alexa, and Cortana right in our home. Usually when I say Alexa, she speaks right up. I'm glad she didn't hear me. The intelligence is also called human-level machine intelligence, and it will soon be upon us. Soon. I say soon. It may be a decade, it may be 3, but I'm fairly confident that we will be able to develop computers that learn the way babies do. And when you combine something that learns as a baby does with the speed and processing power, you come up with a pretty powerful intellect. And I just don't think we human beings are ready yet to be the second smartest species on the planet. The way we treat the second, third, and fourth species on the planet, if that's a template for our new AI companions, I would not want to be around. So in summary, all of these megatrends leave us with a dilemma: is how do we prosper in our careers and more broadly in our lives in an environment that's as chaotic as the one I've just described? The answer lies not in the realms of economics or business strategy, but in the realms of human psychology. And in this next talk, the second half of this talk, I'm going to talk about 21st century research from the areas in psychology that will provide you with some insights and some tools which will help you prosper in your lives and your business. The tools I'm going to talk about in the next video are the growth mindset, lifelong learning, and human flourishing. So thank you for listening.